Hey YouTubers, it's JT. Welcome back to another office hours here for Work It Daily on YouTube. Let me see if I can say that right. Welcome. So you know the drill if you've been here before. This is the next 30 minutes. I will answer your career questions if I can. If I don't know the answer, well then hopefully we'll try to find it out for you. And if you've never been here before, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. What you want to do is put your question over in the chat. Please understand that we get literally hundreds, thousands of people watching the show, so we're not always able to answer every question. And the chat goes so fast that sometimes we don't answer them in order. So just know that. But if you do want your questions always answered every single time by a career coach, guaranteed, then you should be joining us in Work It Daily, and you're going to learn more about that today. That's what we do. That's our business. We make sure that you get the right answers at the right time so that you can make really smart career decisions, so that you can have a very effective job search, so that you can get the results that you're looking for. And we do it in an extremely affordable fashion. We are like the Netflix for career coaching. We are insanely cheap, but unbelievably valuable. So be sure to check that out. All right, I'm going to get started though, because I've got a question right out of the gate here from Vin. Hey, Vin. Vin says, I had multiple job offers over the years and can't remember the exact start and end date of all of them. I've applied to jobs and have been passed up before. What should I do if I can't remember the dates? So this is one of the reasons why you should always document that, right? It's easy to look back and go, gee, I should have been keeping track of that. This is why you get your resume updated. But more importantly, Vin, this is one of the great things about LinkedIn. You know, when LinkedIn came along and enabled us all to build this online thing that keeps track for us these dates. Now, my advice to you is this. Sit down with a piece of paper, go back in time, and do your best to guesstimate. Try to think about the time of year, the seasons, maybe the holidays. What was happening at the time you took a job? What was happening at the time you switched jobs? That'll probably give you an idea of the month that it happened in and the year, and then you want to connect the dots from there, and you want to do your very best. And if you're really worried about it, if you feel like an employer is going to check, then what you should do is call your previous employers and ask them for your dates of employment. In fact, companies are required to give that. They'll give that to a reference check. They can give it to you. So there's no harm in calling up and asking for your exact dates of employment if you want to make the effort to do that. And that's probably the most ideal thing to do, but a lot of people don't want to take the time, in which case I say just, conservatively guesstimate and make sure you've got it up there. But once you do, let's not lose that. Make sure it's captured somewhere so that you never forget it again, okay? All right, great question. Question from Cindy. Cindy says, I am starting a new temporary assignment. Congrats, Cindy. How can I curb and deal with the anxiety I always feel when I start a new assignment? How can I make my best impression? Oh, I love this question, Cindy. So first thing is, Cindy, I want you to step back and write out all the reasons why you're anxious. So maybe you can even post them here. I'm sure others can chime in with you, but all the reasons you're nervous. You write, you want to make a good first impression. You don't want to look foolish. You want to look smart. You want to look helpful. You want to make sure that they're glad that they chose you, right? It's all about the way that you feel. Now I want you to flip it around, and I want you to imagine that you are one of the existing employees of the company and somebody new is starting. What would you hope for them? Well, you would hope that they feel comfortable, that they feel welcomed, that they feel like they can ask people questions, that they can get the information they need. You would be this wonderfully helpful person, wouldn't you? Of course you would. And that's what I'm trying to make you think about here. You are so caught up in what other people think, you're forgetting about the fact that they are a human being just like you are. So my advice to you is to take a deep breath and go in and focus on making friends. And by that I mean, don't, go over the top and ask them a million questions about their personal life. What I'm saying is, keep a smile on your face. Remember your pleases and your thank yous. Make eye contact. Ask them, a question about themselves. Get to know them better. Treat them with respect. And when you do that, it will be reciprocated. That's all. That's all you have to do. Make friends. The rest will follow suit, okay? Now, one thing that I tell people who are really nervous is if you need a little trigger in order to do that, wear a piece of jewelry that you normally always wear on the same ring, or maybe ring on the same finger, or watch on a certain wrist, and flip it. So put your wrist, your watch or your bracelet on the other wrist, or change the rings, or don't wear the normal piece of jewelry that you would wear. Now, why am I telling you to do this? Because as you go throughout your day at the job, you're going to notice it. It's kind of funny anytime we do something like that, because it's a habit. When we change a habit, we notice it. And every time you notice, oh, my watch is on my other wrist, or oh, I'm not wearing that ring today, I want you to remember to take a deep breath and smile. And that's going to happen 5, 6, 7, 8, 20 times throughout the day. But each time you notice it, say, and smile. And what it's going to do is train you to be more aware of the fact that you should be relaxed, you should be smiling, you should be making friends. And it's incredible how well this works. It is incredible. It's just a little trigger. So I want you to try that as well. But overarching theme here is you're there to make friends. You're there to get to know people, to connect, to bond, right? To be a team player. So that's all you have to focus on right now, and the rest will follow suit. Okay, you got this. You absolutely got this. All right, let's see. Question from Jeanette. Hey, Jeanette. How do I explain wanting to leave a permanent job after 6 months to go to a consulting position? Oh, that's a great question. So it's funny, Jeanette, I'm writing an article right now for Inc. magazine about the 7 signs that you should change jobs. And one of the things that I tell people is that if you can't see the job that you're in aligning with what you ultimately want to do next in your career, then that's a really good reason to change. So let me explain. Every job is temporary today. Do we all agree? You're not going to spend 20, 30 years at the same company. Now, you might spend 5, 7, 10 years at a company, but I guarantee you'll do different things because you're evolving. You're not going to stay at a company long term unless you're allowed to reinvent yourself repeatedly at that organization. Some companies do an amazing job of that, and that's why people can stay. Others do not. And sometimes, even if a company is amazing, it still doesn't have what you need to suit your unique needs and your unique career goals. And I'm guessing that's probably what's happening here, because you're in a permanent job and you want to take this consulting gig. There's something drawing you to the consulting gig that is more in alignment with what you are trying to make happen in your personal and unique career path. And that is okay. However, Jeanette, it is on you to articulate that. So sit down and ask yourself, what are the skills that you're going to gain at this consulting gig that you wouldn't gain at the other job? What is the new experiences you're going to have, or the new connections, the new knowledge? What is it about this consulting gig that makes it a better investment of your time and your energy than staying at the permanent gig? And when you can do that very rationally, very logically, when you can explain that and really take the emotion out of it and just say, hey, here are the facts, then you are able to articulate that. Because it's not about whether it's a full-time job or a consulting job. It's about the work that you want to be aligning yourself with, how you want to grow your specialties, how you want to build upon your interests and your passions, and what you want to be known for. And my guess is the job that you're currently in doesn't support that as well as the consulting job. But it's up to you, and I'm glad you pointed that out, and I want everyone to understand that here. It is constantly on us to be thinking about that. And sometimes it's easier for some people than others. Some people just intuitively know how to pivot their career and evolve their career and look for new challenges and look for new things. Other people need to sit down and really inventory and figure it out. And if that's the case for you, then you should do that, because you definitely want to be able to articulate this, especially later on in your career. Let's say you're 2 or 3 jobs later. If I'm a hiring manager, I'm going to look at you and say, walk me through your career story. Why'd you leave this job? Why'd you go to that job? Why did you switch here? Why did you stay at this company for X many years? And in all of those cases, you have to be able to tell me about the 18-month to 2-year journey that you went on and how you reinvented yourself and how each career move was furthering you in your career, whether you moved job to job to job, or whether you stayed put and really rose in the ranks at one organization. Okay? So, great question. I hope that helped, and I hope everyone here is thinking about that. It is on you to connect the dots to your career story, and we should always be thinking about that. Okay? All right, let's see. Erica has a question. What do you do when you realize the raise you received is less than what they told you? So I think the first thing that I would do is ask to set a time with your manager. So ask to set a meeting, a private meeting, one-on-one. And I would go in and I would sit down with your manager and say, can you walk me through something? When we discussed my raise, this is what I thought it was going to be, and this is what I thought it would look like. But now I'm looking at my new pay stub and I'm seeing that it's different. Can you tell me where I misinterpreted this and why it isn't as much as I thought? So you're keeping it open. There might be something that you missed. You're not pointing fingers. You're not passing judgment. What you're doing is articulating a concern you have and going more of the route of help me understand. Now, if they respond to you, well, we thought about it and we decided you didn't deserve as much as we thought, so we gave you what we thought was appropriate. Okay, that's a concern. Or they might come back with, well, actually, when you look at this, this, and this, you are getting what we discussed. You're just getting it in different ways. That might be a good thing. Regardless, you're going to get an answer, and you may be prepared in the moment to respond to it, or maybe you're going to go, okay, thank you for that information, and you're going to come back and you're going to need to think through it a bit more, and then go back again and ask for follow-up. I guess the point that I'm making to you is that what I wouldn't do is react in that meeting. You ask for some information, you get it. If you can calmly respond to that information and work through it in that meeting, great. If not, it's okay to go back, think it through, and then come up with your strategy to go back again. Now, if they say to you, we changed our mind, then the conversation you're going to have is, well, help me understand what it's going to take to get the amount that you promised me, or the amount that was originally discussed is probably the better way to say that. And see if you can have a game plan around that. I'd also follow up with, and how long would it take me to reach that level? I was really hoping to be at that level now. Is this something that we can make happen in the next month, 2 months? What's the time frame for this? It's really important that you get your facts, which is why the discrepancy, how do I make up the discrepancy, and how quickly can I make up the discrepancy? Those are the 3 things that you're looking for answers for. And once you get those answers, it'll be up to you to digest that information and decide whether or not that's satisfactory or not. If it is, then you move forward. If it isn't, then maybe it's time to look for a new employer, right? So again, the key here is to go in and help me understand, get your data, get your facts, come up with thoughtful questions, and then make an informed decision about what you want to do, right? You know, it's just a key piece of data that I've been pointing out a lot this week to people that I like to mention. Studies show that we are, when we are calm, when we are positive, when we are objective in a situation, we're 30% smarter. And I think we've always known that, right? When we're emotional, we're not as smart. We make rash decisions, rash judgments. We say the wrong thing. We do the wrong thing. But in career in particular, I see a lot of people live in a state of unhappiness and anxiety and depression, frustration, anger, and they make poor decisions. They make poor decisions in the moment in what they say to coworkers or managers. They make poor decisions about jobs. I see people jump out of the frying pan and into the fire all the time. They just leave because they're in pain, only to end up in worse pain someplace else. So my one overarching piece of advice to everyone here is that if you're in any kind of level of frustration or depression or whatever it is, it's really important to get some help. It's really important to get yourself in a place where you're starting to feel hopeful, where you're starting to feel confident again. Because if you don't have that, you're working at a disadvantage. You're 30% less smart. You're making 30% less effective decisions. So the primary thing that everyone should be focused on is getting themselves in a good mental state when you're working on your career, no matter what it is. Okay? All right. So let's talk about Diva's question. I need advice on a career change. I have worked for 3 years as an engineer and recently took up a job as a recruiter. Now I don't know which direction to proceed. What should I do? My career move was a bad one. How do I play that to my advantage? Okay. So first of all, let's reframe. This is a great example, Diva. I'm so glad you brought this up. This is a great example. You are looking at the facts, you're looking at the story and interpreting it as you made a bad decision. So you're in a crisis of confidence right now. You've decided that you screwed up and that being a recruiter was a bad thing. And now you're putting yourself at an emotional disadvantage with that mindset. I don't see it that way at all. I see it as you experimented. You had some experiences. They were powerful experiences. Maybe being a recruiter wasn't the positive outcome that you were looking for or hoping for when you went into it, because who goes into any career situation expecting the worst? Of course, we're thinking it's going to be a good thing. But you didn't get the results. This experiment did not yield the results that you were looking for. Okay, fine. What'd you learn from the experience? What did you learn about being a recruiter? What new respect do you have for recruiting? Why is recruiting not right for you? How is it not playing to your professional strengths? What did it make you miss about your former job? These are all valuable and important pieces of information. And if you can string those things together, you've got a really fantastic story, which is, hey, I experimented with a career change because I thought it was going to provide me with, X, Y, and Z. It didn't, But instead, it taught me this about myself and this about myself and this about the industry and this and that. It taught me all these things. Now, they may not be the most positive things, but they're important things nonetheless, because what they're doing is making me realize how much I want to go back to my other profession, how much I appreciate what I was doing, and how much more committed I'm going to be now that I had this experience. Trust me when I tell you, we have to, you kiss a lot of frogs to find your prince. It's kind of like a fairy tale joke. We have to have these negative experiences in our career. You have to have these setbacks. You have to have these things that don't go your way. It's the only way for you to figure out what you don't want and what you do want. And if you look at it that way and take a deep breath and go, hey, this was powerful, this taught me something, then pat yourself on the back for that, because you put yourself out there and you tried something, and that already deserves kudos. So there's no mistake here. There's no setback here. There's something that you learned from, and now you want to take those learnings and apply them and tell the story in a way that's very compelling. Does that make sense? So you can do this. You absolutely can do this, but don't look at it as a negative. Don't put yourself at that disadvantage. That's not the case. You just had an experience. It's time for you to share the power of that experience and how it's bringing you back to what you really want to do. Let's see. Ignacio. Hello, Ignacio. I sent prior LinkedIn personal message invites to a firm's inside recruiter, but not accepted yet. Other suggestions, just trying to get a starting intro regarding future opportunities. Yeah, sure, Ignacio. So my advice to you is to not go the recruiter route at this point. If the recruiter did not accept your connection request, they may have looked at your profile and they may have already chosen to screen you out. Now, once a recruiter has decided to do that, think about it. This is a recruiter's job. This is how they get evaluated. Their job is to look at people's candidacy and decide whether they'd be a fit or not. And like it or not, when a recruiter decides you're not a fit, you are not going to dissuade them in that conversation. So you trying to reach out to the recruiter by email or Facebook or kind of stalking them until they connect with you is not going to work. It's going to backfire on you. They're not going to like it. What you're going to need is a change in their perception. And the way to do that is for you to network and connect with other people in the organization. So my advice to you is to look at other people who have similar job titles or work in departments that you'd be interested in, maybe even work in departments you're not interested in, but went to the same school as you or worked at an organization that you worked at. You want to look for lots of people that work there and find a point of commonality between you and them. I would ask them to connect on LinkedIn. And when they accept your connection request, you can reach out to them, tell them why you admire the organization and that you do hope to work there someday. But right now, you're just trying to get a better sense of what somebody needs to stand out, or maybe why this person chose to work at the company. You're looking to gather your data. Now, by meeting other people in the organization, they're not the recruiter, so they're going to feel less threatened about responding to you. And you're not going to get everyone to respond to you. We see there's about, a 2 in 10, 1 in 5 response rate these days on LinkedIn. So it's a numbers game. But all it takes is a couple of people to respond to you and give you that insight, and you're establishing relationships. Then what you can do is really add value there. Get to know those people, send them a video or an article that you think they would find interesting based on what they do. Build connection, build rapport, so that when the time comes, when this company does have a job posting that fits your criteria, you could reach out to those people and say, hey, I saw this job. Would you be willing to introduce me to the recruiter or the hiring manager? And that way you can get in through another channel. And here's why. Because that recruiter who didn't accept your request or maybe initially decided you weren't a fit, the moment somebody from the organization recommends you, now they're going to screen you in. That's how it works. Because as a recruiter, if someone in the organization is giving me someone to look at, I'm more inclined to look at that person because I don't want to let the person internally down, and they're getting essentially an endorsement, so I want to evaluate them. And that's how you go around the system. A lot of people don't realize that. This is kind of a perfect place for me to stop and just tell everyone, one of the best tools we have on this is inside the Work It Daily program. So we have video courses on a huge amount of topics related to job search and career development. Networking with recruiters is one of them. In fact, last month, I did an entire class called Make Recruiters Come to You. And there are 15 modules to it. We did them Monday through Friday for 3 weeks, but you could watch them all in a few days if you were a member of our program. Maybe not even. They're pretty short. You could probably do the whole course in a day if you wanted to. But it shows you the process of making these recruiters come to you. I let people inside the world of a recruiter understand what their day is like, what they're looking for, what they like, what they don't like, how to connect with them, how to build the right tools, the right resume, the right cover letter, the right LinkedIn profile, etc. So if you're interested, that course is part of the Work It Daily program, and I would tell you, in addition to the advice I just gave you, I think you would find that very helpful. Okay? All right, let's see. CS says, at my prior job, a coworker was making comments about me not being born and brought up in the U.S. and that I don't have a specific certification. How do I answer why I left that job? Oh my. Okay, so I guess my question is that why you left the job? Did you leave the job because this person said you didn't have a specific certification? If that's the case, I'm curious as to why. What you have to say is whatever reason you left for should be factual. So did the assignment end? Was the work not aligned with what you needed to do? What was the reason? And even questions like if you were fired, you need to know how to answer that because they're going to find that out one way or another. So the answer to why you left a job is always going to be very factual. And I don't know what that is. But if it was because this person was saying that, then I think you're going to have to follow something called the Experience, Learn, and Grow method. This is a method for answering questions that we teach inside the program. And we give you a very detailed process for how to do this. But the short version is you want to say, hey, here's what I experienced. And it shouldn't be emotional, and you shouldn't bring all your feelings into it. You should say, this is what happened, this is what I did, and this is what I learned from the experience. So for example, if you left because this person was saying these things and now you regret leaving, now you realize, gee, I probably shouldn't have just left that job prematurely without finding a new one, for example, then you're going to want to articulate that. You're going to want to say, you know what, I realize now I shouldn't have left. I should have addressed the concern, and I would do that next time. So you really have to follow that Experience, Learn, and Grow model, and not knowing the specifics of your situation, I'm going to advise you to definitely dive into our course and look at that, because this is a really important thing, folks. I think the bigger question here is anytime you leave a job, you have to have a really good reason of explaining why you left it. Most of the time, they're going to assume that either you did something and you're not saying it, right? You weren't performing in some way, there was some problem, or some need of yours wasn't being met and you wanted to move on. And so hopefully you moved on to another job, but if you didn't, if you left voluntarily or involuntarily, you're really going to have to explain that well, because the moment somebody leaves a job and they don't have a new job lined up, it becomes pretty suspect for a recruiter. Their mind goes to dark places. Even if you're the one that quit, their mind goes to dark places. So very important that you get your response to that correctly, or you're going to find it hard to get interviews. Okay? All right, let's see. Christy says, I started a new internship recently and I need some advice on how to progress for a potential job instead of just being a new intern. Well, I mean, the first thing that you want to do is sit down with the manager of the organization, ask for a time on their schedule that works for them, and sit down and make your intentions known, Christy. So you want to say, I love being an intern here. My ultimate goal is to land a job with the company. Can you talk me through the steps that I'm going to need to take to potentially earn a position here? What would be the expectations? How do I exceed those expectations? What can I do? So get the blueprint from the source, from the managers that can hire you. The next thing I would do is ask around and see if anybody in the organization started as an intern and ended up as a full-time employee. Now that's somebody I would buy them coffee, or I would take them to lunch and I would say, tell me how you did it. What advice can you give me to make that transition? What do you think got you the full-time position? And really pay attention to their advice and apply it if you can, because when people see you seeking advice and then applying that advice and doing what they told you to do, that scores you points. That gets people going, okay, he or she is a good listener, took my feedback. This is somebody that I could see being on our team. So those would be the two things that I would advise you to do. You need a blueprint, you need to know. So the best way to do that is to ask and then to follow through. All right. Let's see. Mark says, regarding the question, tell me about yourself. How much of the response should be personal and how much is professional? So I'm going to tell you something about that, Mark. If you're in a job interview, and I'm saying, tell me about yourself, I'm asking you about your professional self, just so everybody knows that. I am asking you about your professional self. I want to know what you're an expert at. What do you love to do? What problems do you love to solve? What pain do you love to alleviate? Why do you love to do that? You know, how do you do that? Those kinds of things. I want a nice summary. And we actually teach people how to answer that question inside our interview prep around that. It's not to say that you can't bring some of your personal information into it. I just wouldn't get too personal out of the gate. If you want to share, you know, a favorite hobby or an interest, that's fine. But remember, the moment we get personal, we get judged. And you don't know this other person. You don't know their thoughts on a wide range of subjects. So that's why I feel it's really important that you stick to the more professional stuff. But talk about what you love to do, what problems you love to solve, what pain you love to alleviate, and why. That's the stuff that I want to hear. I'm looking as a hiring manager for your internal motivation for work. Why do you get up in the morning? Why do you do what you do? What drives you through the good times and the bad? I need to understand your psyche around that. So that's the answer that I'm looking for. Lisa says, what if you started your career in market research and then got into marketing communications, and after several years you found market research is a better fit? How do you go back to your first love? Lisa, it's very similar to the question that we had earlier today. It's about telling the career story. So again, we did that at the beginning of this year. In January, we did a career reinvention, kind of a career accelerator course. And it started with you analyzing your career story. So obviously, if you were to break this story out, Lisa, there are some markers in that journey that made you come to realize and have the aha moments that marketing communications, while you learned a lot and gained some valuable insight, ultimately it taught you wanted to get back into research and why. You need to write those points out. Think about it. If you were to ask to write a paper about your career and the situation you're in and how you got to where you are right now, there would be facts. Pull those facts out, tell that story. Explain what you've learned, how you've grown. It was an experiment. The experiment taught you a ton, but ultimately the experiment taught you that you need to go back to market research. And here are the really compelling reasons why. Make the case. That's all you need to do, folks, is make the case. It's got to be compelling. It's got to be factual. Otherwise, hiring managers are not going to believe it. Let's see. Luba Love asks, how do I find a job remotely? I'm looking to move to a different state with my family and struggling to find a job in the state I want to move to. Yeah, so the problem with that is that most employers don't want to hire you unless you live there, and here's why. They're going to be really fearful that they're going to relocate you all the way there. You're not going to have any friends or family. You're not going to like it, and you're going to leave. And then they're going to have wasted all their time and energy on recruiting you. That is why people like to hire people that live in their area. For that reason, they don't want to lose you to another city or another state. So what we teach, and we have a video on this here on YouTube, by the way, it's called Long Distance Job Search, and I'm sure the team will pull it up for you. But we walk you through what to do. You really need to choose where you want to move to. It sounds like you have, and build a case for that. So you're going to build a strategy, you're going to target employers, and you're going to let them know you're moving there by a very specific date. And so I would start saving money, I would start making the plans, I would start figuring out how you're going to get yourself and your family there by a certain date so that you can articulate that message to recruiters and employers. Otherwise, they're not going to be the ones that are going to be the reason for you to relocate. They don't want to be the ones. They want to know that you're already there, that you're planning to be there, that it's going to happen whether they hire you or not. And then you're going to need a very different strategy. If you're applying online, you're probably not even getting viewed because you're in a different location. So you have to learn how to go around the online hiring process, which is what we teach you to do inside the job search plan. So you should definitely check that out. All right, I've got just 2 minutes left here. So let me ask a question. I've got a question from Azar. How do you network with people in a company you're looking to apply? Should you wait to connect with someone before applying or apply and connect? I've watched the LinkedIn course on Work It Daily. Great question. So first of all, if a company has a position that you're interested in, then obviously you're going to go through the process of applying. But understand that it's probably not likely that you'll get that job. And that's because you don't have an existing network there. Applying is a great reason for you to then start to network, but manage your expectations pretty wisely here. It's not to say that you couldn't get the job, but just understand you're at a disadvantage because you don't have an existing network there. The good news is that you know they have the type of work that you're interested in. What I would do is start to reach out to people and say, I'd love to learn more about your organization. I see that you do this kind of work, that kind of work. I wouldn't right out of the gate to a bunch of strangers say, hey, I just applied to your XYZ position. Can we connect? No one's going to respond to you. So go ahead and apply. Don't expect much, but apply because you never know. And instead, start to identify people and say, can we connect? I see that you work at XYZ. I'm really interested in the company. Would love to learn more specifically about your job, or I'd love to learn about how you landed your job there, or I see that we went to the same school, or we're interested in the same things. You want to start to build that connection. Ideally, if you know somebody that knows somebody at the organization, ask for a referral. That's the best way to get people to talk to you at a company you're interested in. But if you don't know anybody that knows someone there, then you're going to have to do that outreach. And that's what we teach you in the program, right? We teach you how to do that. I would not mention that you just applied for the job. Don't go there, because they're flat out going to know that you're looking for some kind of referral. Instead, focus on building a relationship with them. If it comes out through your relationship and getting to know them that you applied to the job, that's fine. But what you're really trying to do is build a rapport in spite of the fact that there was a job posting. Because like I said, the chances that you're going to get a call are pretty slim. If you get lucky, awesome. But I would just go ahead and apply and now say, okay, I've applied. Now I'm focused on just building a relationship here. Okay? All right. And I've got a question from James. James says, in an age where all jobs seem to want specialists, how can a really good generalist get noticed and stand out? Well, James, if you're a really good generalist, it means you're a specialist in a lot of things, in my opinion. Right? When you think about that, you're just a specialist in a lot of things, James. So the answer is to take a look at the kinds of jobs that you've been interested in, and thematically, what's the one specialist they're all looking for? That's what you need to play up. So one of the things that we teach people to do inside our program, specifically with respect to resume and LinkedIn, is how to pull out those specialties out of your overall brand and position it that way. And there's a way to do that, and it has to do with your keywords and your titling. Now, once you've done that, they'll see that you can do all sorts of things, but you yourself have drawn out the specialty that you have. And that's a brilliant thing. And maybe you're applying and there's a couple different specialties. Awesome. Then you're probably going to use a technique that we have where you change the top fold of the resume. You don't change the whole resume, but you change the top fold to reflect one or two specialties. And I've seen people do that as well. But if you're a really fabulous generalist, then it means you're a specialist in a lot of things. It's just up to you to narrow it down. A lot of times people just want to put everything they've ever done on a resume and on LinkedIn profile. It doesn't work. Less is more. Create white space around your brand. Focus in on things that you do well. It doesn't mean that you don't do these other things. In fact, your goal is to get the interview. Your goal is to get the conversation going, in which case they're going to find out that you're a generalist and you can do all these other things. And you know how they're going to see it? Bonus! Because they were looking for a specialist and they're getting a specialist plus all this bonus. So that's how you have to look at yourself. It's all just in the way that you present yourself. That's it. It's pretty simple. But you do need to know the right techniques. And certainly if you're a member of Work It Daily, we show you how to do that, okay? Speaking of which, I know that everybody is seeing the information here. Every Wednesday, we give you a chance to use a discount code today on our program. It saves you $10 a month on either of our subscriptions. There's no setup fee. You can cancel at any time, folks. And I have to tell you, the most common thing I hear from people when they get inside the program is, I don't know why I waited so long. So what are you waiting for? Why don't you get in there, start using some of these tools, start working with our career coaches, and get your thing going, your job search, your career development, your promotion. What are you trying to make happen? If you're not 100% ecstatic, happy, feeling really good about where you're going in your career, then you need help. And that's what Work It Daily does, right? Very simple. So join us. I want to see you there on the inside. If you're not ready yet, okay, I understand. I'm just glad that you're here on YouTube. Make sure that you subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Make sure you also check the bell that gives you instant notifications when we're going live. That way it's like your automatic alarm clock. And hopefully we'll see you back here next week when we go live again, okay? All right, team. Thanks so much for stopping by. It was great to be here with you. Great questions today. I'll see you soon, okay? All right, take care, everyone. Bye.